Happy International Women's Day. I remember when I was a young engineer and I was pregnant with my first baby, Matt. That was 29 years ago. I returned to work after maternity leave with a renewed vigour, and I thought, if I'm going to be at work full time and not be at home with Matt, then I need to really make a go of it and make it count. I also needed to earn some money. So when I got back from maternity leave, I asked my boss at the time for a pay rise, and he said, well, you've been absolutely no use at all to us over the last 6 months. And that's the polite version of what he said. And at the time, I generally heard managers saying things around, other women around, well, she can't do the role if she works part-time. I really wanted to leave and just join another company, but I didn't. I continued to do what I thought was a good job, and I continued to challenge thinking and challenge statements that were made about women, about their capability and choices over part-time working, no matter how uncomfortable that made me feel as the only woman in the room often. I think I'm supported in breaking the bias, or starting to break the bias, by sticking at my career and working my way up onto the executive board of Mott MacDonald, which shows other young women, I hope, that you can do it. And in my role as the MD of UNA, I've set really clear goals for gender representation at all levels. I've brought together a senior UNA leadership team that is 40% female, and together we are continuing to challenge thinking around all forms of bias. I particularly use data to demonstrate where we are being biased. For example, when we undertake promotions, salary and performance bonus reviews, and to use that data to help us drive the action that's going to make a difference. And I've implemented a policy that all roles should be able to be done part-time unless there are exceptional circumstances. So I am helping, I hope, to break the bias. Let's break the bias together.
When I joined Mott MacDonald as a graduate engineer over 30 years ago, there weren't many women in civil engineering. The conversations had started, but I was definitely in a minority. As I sit here today in the UK, it feels quite different. There are many more women in the workplace, in leadership and management roles. And if I look back and think about this, from my experience, I don't see one major factor that influenced this change. I think there were lots of things all coming together that made the difference. Informal and formal conversations on what needed to change and women's experience. For example, my two children are now 25 and 21, but when they were younger, I worked 4 days a week. It was difficult at times to get the balance right, but I really enjoyed this time. And I used to talk about it openly in the workplace, about how this experience made me a better mother, engineer, manager. And I look back now and I think that must have made a difference, because when two of my senior engineers became fathers, they came to me and we talked about how they could change their working hours so they could share the childcare and spend more time with their children. Of course, I said yes, but only if they were strict with themselves and didn't let work creep into that time. So why am I telling you this? Well, over the last few years, I've managed different teams in different locations and with different cultures. And whilst in the UK, there's been a lot of change, possibly not where we want to be yet, but in many other countries, there hasn't been the same progress. And we need to keep breaking down those barriers and changing those biases. So I'm going to keep talking about my experiences, mentoring different colleagues, and advocating for positive change. And I think I would like you to do the same. You might think the conversations you have and the things you do are quite small, but when they add up with everybody else's, it will make a real difference for everyone. So keep advocating for positive change and having those conversations with everybody that will listen. We will make a difference.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where or when you're actually watching this. My name is David Cox. I'm very proud and very fortunate to be managing the most diverse region in Mott MacDonald, ISMA, working across South Asia, Middle East, Africa, and international development work globally. I'm also delighted to be part of Mott MacDonald's Global Day for International Women's Day, and just reflecting on barriers to inclusion for gender and diversity. When I started work 40 years ago in the nuclear industry in the UK, that graduate intake was all male. I can remember the office had a bar where you could get alcohol at lunchtime, and that created a laddish culture. Barriers to inclusion. How far we've come over 40 years to breaking down those barriers, with big institutional changes and day-to-day actual changes to the way we behave towards each other. A great current example came out of our advanced network in India, where they've looked at women who've left to have children are not coming back to the office, not coming back to employment. There's an expectation in the culture in India that when you leave to have a child, you are looking after the child, and more than that, you're looking at your immediate and actually distant family. You're responsible. So we've had an initiative of reaching out and educating and supporting previous employees to come back, and that's starting to build some success now. Six previous colleagues have come back after 2 to 7 years. That's a great initiative, and a big call out of thanks for Rashmi in India. Thank you. But to me, it's the everyday things that we do that break down those barriers. It's the conversations, it's the being interested, it's being open, it's listening to people's experiences. And what a great thing that is to hear everyone's experience. It's the day-to-day things we do in meetings or in conversations to invite people in. I'm still learning as well, trying to be inclusive in this COVID lockdown on Teams calls. So, for example, to a Muslim woman on a call, the camera is off. Come on, switch your camera on. I want to include you in this conversation. It doesn't work. We have to respect that she may be at home without her hijab covering her hair and doesn't want to be seen. So what a rich diversity we have in Mott MacDonald, and our business is enhanced by breaking down those barriers, including all views. And it's our everyday behaviours that do that. They're as important as all the big institutional changes. Thank you.